Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition, and we're going to talk about what Gary Gygax called us to. And specifically, we're going to talk about Matt Colville's failure to hear Gary Gygax's call. All right, so let's talk about this. So, Matt Colville, fantastic Dungeons and Dragons commentator, does just phenomenal work. He got something wrong recently. That's okay. I think if you speak, by the way, I'm like kind of working out my, I'll tell you right now, this latte apocalypse has been very tough for me, and I've just been a little raw lately, just been a little low, and I'll tell you too, I had a discussion with my brother recently, and I've been low for not good reasons. Believe it or not, when I look at the facts, I've done tremendously through the latte apocalypse, and I'm probably way better off than I was before it, but just things like masks, like things like not being able to breathe on the regular basis, not being able to share my identity, not being able to see the identity of the people I love, and just even strangers is deeply upsetting to me, right? And it's upsetting, right? So it's been hard, right? And when you speak publicly, you say things wrong. So when I say Matt Colville said this thing wrong, all I'm really saying is Matt Colville spoke publicly. And everybody who doesn't speak publicly and just stays in the comments, right? That you do the easy part. Like, you pick through 1,000 points that we've said and you go, oh, I saw one that was wrong, right? But we do say things wrong, and people can comment on that. And I'm going to talk about something that Matt Colville said that was wrong. Not to call him out, and Matt Colville isn't stupid, right? Matt Colville is not, he's not lazy or stupid, right? He just was wrong on this one thing, and the reason why I'm going to talk about it is the wrongness, and that's the other thing, is he shouldn't talk about, like, let's say he said something inconsequential that was wrong. Who should take the time to even comment that that's wrong, right? Well, but he said something that was wrong that was very consequential, and I want to talk about it, so let's get into it. All right. So he did this fantastic video, and it was called Everybody Loves Zombies. And the idea was that he had learned from a game designer that everybody loves zombies, and the reason why is they are lifeless corpses, right? Actually, they're undead corpses that eat humans, right? And when an adventurer just raises her sword and hacks a zombie down, everybody can cheer, because there's nothing wrong with killing that evil, human-eating, shambling corpse, right? And we need villains that everybody can understand. This is a villain, right? And I'm going to destroy it, right? Because good can triumph over evil. And he's saying that Dungeons & Dragons story should have this. I totally agree. I think Dungeons & Dragons is made for showing stories about combat, exploration, and interaction. And the story should have all three in equal measures, right? And I think Gary knew that, and when Mike Merle set it into print in 2014, he was just echoing Gary Gygax from 1974. Okay, now here's where it got weird. Matt Colville said, here's the monster manual, and what can we kill in the monster manual? It's a great question, right? Such a brilliant question. Can we kill everything in the monster manual? Because the book says monster manual, everything in here, logically, by the name, everything in here should be a monster, right? But then he's like, wait, no, Matt Colville's like, no, unicorns are in here. And I had talked about the same thing on my channel just a little previously, right? Unicorns are in the monster manual. How does that make sense? Unicorns are clearly not monsters, right? And he said, so how does a player character group, right? And when he said player character, he's talking Dungeons. How does the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition player character group, who is going to be good, right? Like the game says, you're not allowed, it says, you as player characters play good aligned and neutral aligned, and it's not an accident, right? They know they don't want tables dedicated to murder and worse, right? Like, nobody wants evil campaigns, right? Like, it's just at the macro level. There are certainly exceptions, but at the macro level, people don't want evil campaigns. Certainly not, right? And Wizards of the Coast and TSR before them and Hasbro, they all know the dangers of allowing player characters to run evil campaigns. They can go south so fast, it can, people need, like, you could end up saying a hate crime right at the table, right? Like, you need to put borders on evil player characters. And the game does. It says this isn't, say you want to do that nonsense, you got to go way off board, right, off grid to get there, because this game won't let you do it out of the box, right? And that is on purpose, right? So he said, so here's what Matt Colville said. He said, what's the criteria? Can we kill everything in the monster manual because it's the monster manual? Can we kill everything in the monster manual that's evil aligned? That's a really good criteria, right? Or can we kill everything in the monster manual that's evil aligned and is putting out energy to destroy us or things we care about, right, as player characters, right? And I was like, that's a great, discussion, right? And what blew my mind was then he said, guess what? If you have a player character group that says it's okay to kill everything in the monster manual, power on, you do you, right? And I was like, no, Matt Colville, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. And right there, Matt Colville forgot the voice of Gary Gygax. Gary Gygax called us to something great, right? And I know for a fact, a lot of you are like, Gary Gygax, and I've heard this, I was on RPG Digest recently, I just called in on last Friday nights, and I heard the same noise, like there, and they're like, Gary Gygax was just a businessman, he was trying to make a buck. And I'm like, if you believe that, you are so, you're so foolish, right? Gary Gygax was a brilliant guy. He could have made a buck a million different ways. He didn't need to create a new genre and get investors involved in a way that could absolutely have failed, right? He took a lot of risk, and he worked really hard. He went the long way around to make an American buck. And if you think Gary Gygax made Dungeons & Dragons to feed his family, you ain't paying attention, right? He could have done it 55 different ways, and ways that would have been a lot, frankly, would have made a lot more money and wouldn't have, caused a dent in his life in 1986 when he was literally, when he chose to leave TSR and leave behind what this incredible, thing that he had built, right? So the idea that Gary Gygax made, Dungeons and Dragons to make a U.S. dollar is so utterly ridiculous. He could, if he wanted to do that, he could have gone into house siding or a million other things that would have been much safer, and he would have been able to do, in my opinion, a much better job of raising his family. Maybe had less divorces, right? There's the idea is just ludicrous, right? So here's where Matt Colville got it wrong. He says, it's okay for you guys to do what you want and kill anything in the monster manual. That's okay for you guys. It's not good for me. And there's more discerning characters, but here's the issue. He has a platform, right? And Gary wanted us to be heroes. That's why he made it so you could not make an evil character in Dungeons & Dragons out of the box. You had to tear the box up to get there, right? He's like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it without me and without the blessing of TSR, right? And that tradition stands to this day, right? Player characters are heroes, right? And we're supposed to be player character heroes, and we're supposed to be heroes in life. That's what Gary was calling us to, and that's what Matt Colville doesn't get. He thinks it's okay for a group of player characters, a dungeon master and 4 player characters, to have a campaign dedicated to hunting unicorns, ripping the horn out of their skull and selling them for spell components. That ain't right. That isn't what Gary called us to, right? And so Matt Colville, he doesn't want to be the man. He doesn't want to be the authority saying, hey, I'm not down with your unicorn hunting campaign, right? That's not D&D. That's not Gygax, and that's not you being a hero, right? That's not you using this game to make yourself a better person, right? That's not you accepting Dungeons & Dragons for what it is, something truly innovative, something truly special, something truly unique, right? Matt Colville doesn't want to be the hierarchy. He doesn't want to be the man. He doesn't want to be the authority. And he's not willing to say, hey, don't use Dungeons & Dragons to run a unicorn hunting campaign, right? And you have 4 people who are all celebrating tearing unicorn horns out of unicorn heads and selling them at the closest tavern for spell parts, right? Right? And the thing is, Colville's wrong. He's 100% wrong. Gygax calls from the grave, right? Not supernaturally. Gygax wasn't a god. He wasn't some supernatural being. He was just a polymath at the level of Leonardo da Vinci, right? He's just a brilliant creator the same way Albert Einstein was. That's all he is. He's just one of the greatest American heroes that's ever existed. That's all he is. He's not a god. He's not a supernatural being. But he calls from his grave with his legacy saying, Matt Colville, get a spine and tell people to make themselves better with the thing I created, right? And Matt Colville should have said, if you think that you can kill anything you want in the Monster Manual, you're wrong, and you need to be a better human being, right? I'm willing to say it. If you're running a unicorn hunting campaign, you're wrong. You're using Dungeons & Dragons wrong, and what you're doing is wrong. Matt Colville don't have the spine to hear what Gygax called us all to be better humans. But I hear Gary Gygax, right? And I'm calling Matt Colville to open his ears. What do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a very wonderful millennium.